That was Rage Against the Machine, Sleep Now, and The Fire. So you were all arrested?
No, only the person who was the slowest runner was arrested. That would be me. And they took me away. They took me actually inside the Federal Hall and in handcuffs. And I was able inside the hall to talk my way out of it and to get them to take the handcuffs off and not take me downtown. So I don't know how that happened, because I don't know. Usually that's not the case with the NYPD, but they, though, went across the street, like I said, with the crowd, and the stock exchange saw them coming, and they locked the doors automatically, and then these big steel shutter doors came down over all the doors to the stock exchange, and they literally, even though this is still during the trading day, I don't know if they've ever actually had to shut the place down while they were in the business of capitalism there, but but this was 11 years ago, and I think they still are upset about it.
Well, speaking of arrests, Princeton University professor, renowned civil rights activist Cornel West is with us, and he was arrested on Friday afternoon here in New York during a demonstration in Harlem against racial profiling. Professor West was in New York to protest the New York Police Department's stop-and-frisk policy, which critics say disproportionately targets blacks and Latinos especially. Reports show New York City police carried out 600,000 such searches last year, with 87% of the targets being black or Hispanic. This is Professor West.
We stand here in front of the police department to say, in the spirit of love, we don't hate anybody. But we love young people of all colors. But we zero in on the black and brown who are disproportionately targeted. And we simply say we care for you. We're concerned about you. And we'll go to jail for you.
That was Professor West. He was then arrested. Only 7% of stop-and-frisk searches result in arrest. Some suggest the practice does little to reduce crime, is likely unconstitutional. Professor West arrested along with 30 other people in this protest. They locked arms in front of the NYPD's 28th precinct as hundreds looked on, including a contingent of supporters from Occupy Wall Street. Professor West's arrest in New York comes just a week after he was handcuffed on the steps of the Supreme Court, one of 19 people arrested there last Sunday during a protest against the increasing role of money in politics. There, he spoke in solidarity with the Occupy Wall Street movement.
We want to bear witness today that we know the relation between corporate greed and what goes on too often in the Supreme Court decision. We want to send a lesson to ourselves, to our loved ones, our families, our communities, our nation, and the world, that out of deep love for working and poor people, that we are willing to put whatever it takes, even if we get arrested today, and say, we will not allow this day of Martin Luther King Jr.'s memorial to go without somebody going to jail. Because Martin King would be here right with us, willing to throw down out of deep love. And I want to add a special word for our brothers and sisters of the police force, because we want to let them know that we are standing with them as working people as well. We're here to bear witness be in solidarity with the Occupy movement all around the world, because we love poor people, we love working people, and we want Martin Luther King Jr. to smile from the grave that we haven't forgotten.
Professor West was arrested just down the road from where President Obama was dedicating the Martin Luther King monument on the National Mall. Professor West with Michael Moore today. 2 arrests in 1 week. What's happening, Professor West?
Well, let me just first say I'm blessed to be here, and congratulations on the New York Times piece, and to just be in the same room with Michael Moore, in the same country, on the same planet, is inspiring to me. The brother's brilliance and a deep love for people just is quite, it's a national, international treasure, and that's very important, because we right in the middle of a movement, and to see that kind of quality of sacrifice and service is a beautiful thing. It's a sublime thing, very much so. But no, what we're trying to do is connect what's going on Wall Street with what's going on in Harlem. Because if, in fact, we continue to have this kind of magnificent movement here and around the world, we want to be able to connect the corporate greed, not just on Wall Street, but in the military-industrial complex, the prison-industrial complex, and the corporate media multiplex, so that we have an inclusive, systemic analysis, even as we're willing to bear witness to the love for poor and working people.
And even as this happens, the the protests here in New York, both on Wall Street and in Harlem and all over the world, you have this announcement by President Obama that the U.S. will be pulling out of Iraq, the troops, by the end of the year. Over the weekend, I was in Louisville, Kentucky, where I spoke to demonstrators at Occupy Louisville in solidarity with the Occupy Wall Street movement. In a moment, we'll play some of what they had to say. But one of the people there was a vet, actually from the Persian Gulf War. His name was Bruce Smith. Where did you serve?
I was serving the Gulf War. I was in the infantry, U.S. Army, 2nd Armored Division, 1st Infantry Division. Basically, we refer to it now as Bush War I. And it was kind of the start of all the issues that happened in Iraq in particular. And a lot of us veterans feel that we were kind of a foil to start this entire process of the grab for the oil in the Mideast, the grab for resources, the grab for control. And we're really disappointed with the way things have turned out. I'm disappointed that this ended with such a whimper, that the only reason we're leaving Iraq right now is because the Iraqi parliament refused to indemnify U.S. troops from war crimes prosecution. If they had, we'd still be there for decades to come. We're leaving for that reason only. So to me, it feels that there's been a lot of useless death and destruction, a lot of broken lives, a lot of broken soldiers coming home to a country that, promised them job training, promised them, promised them health care, promised them housing, and they're going to come back to a different country. And I just hope that we can step up and provide them, at least fulfill the promises that were made when they stepped forward.
Gulf War vet Bruce Smith speaking, in the middle of the night on Saturday night. I was in Louisville. They were at Occupy Louisville. And we're going to hear some more from vets and others there. But Michael Moore, you spoke out against the Iraq War, a few days after the war started, when you won the Academy Award for bowling for Columbine. Let's go back and take a listen.
We like nonfiction. We like nonfiction, and we live in fictitious times. We live in a time where we have fictitious election results that elects a fictitious president. We live in a time where we have a man sending us to war for fictitious reasons, whether it's the fictition of duct tape or the fictitious of orange alerts. We are against this war, Mr. Bush. Shame on you, Mr. Bush. Shame on you.
That was Michael Moore receiving the Academy Award for Bowling for Columbine. It's now 8 years later. You have an Occupy movement all over the United States and around the world. Michael, your thoughts right now?
Well, I have not felt this good in a very long time. This movement has spread like wildfire, and it is happening completely on its own momentum, and it's something that can't be stopped. I literally, and I don't know, maybe Dr. West maybe feels the same way. We've been involved in various movements and causes for many, many years, and it takes a long time to build these movements. And at the beginning of the movements, at the beginning of the Civil Rights Movement, at the beginning of the feminist movement, the anti-war movement in Vietnam, you didn't have 59% of the American public with you in the first month of the movement. According to the National Journal poll yesterday, that's what it says. 59% of the American public is behind Occupy Wall Street. This has happened so fast, And yet it was, the reason I think is because I think the people were already there. The feeling toward Wall Street, toward corporate America, toward what's going on has just been simmering beneath the surface. And it was just ready to explode. And that is what's happened. And it can't be turned back now. And the politicians are trying to figure out, how do we deal with this? How do we either try and stop it in the way that the Republicans would like to do, or the way the Democrats are doing it? How do we co-opt it? How do we try to pretend we're part of it? And and frankly, President Obama, though he said some nice things last week, everybody's tired of saying nice things. Where's the action? Where's the actual action that people thought you, President Obama, were going to do when you were elected to this office?
Now, you both supported President Obama.
It was critical support, I think, we both had, because we looked at, of course, the right wing, and the right wing takeover would have been even more atrocious. But I think both of us knew that he tended to move too much toward the center.
Do you feel that today, that a right-wing takeover would be more atrocious?
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, when you look at the mediocrity, mendacity, and mean-spiritedness among Republican candidates, you say to yourself, my God, if one of those folk actually gained access to the White House, I'm not sure that we'd even be around, as it were. But at the same time, we've got now a new space. I mean, what the Occupy movement is to be able to show the ways in which both parties are tied to oligarchic rule. Both parties are tied to big money. And we've got some real possibilities, I think.
Michael, I know you have to go do a BBC interview, and then you're going off to CNBC somewhere. Is that right?
I'm going to go and stand in front of the stock exchange on a public street that I help pay for. So that's where I will be at 11 a.m. And I told CNBC they can show up there if they want. But I agree with what Dr. West just said. I think that you know, why don't we just do this? Why don't we just say, you know, considering the 9 crazies that are running against Obama, and that the majority of Americans aren't crazy, and that they will not vote for one of those 9. So let's assume that President Obama is going to get that second term. This isn't really about electoral politics. The Occupy movement is not about who's going to win next year, as much as it is that whoever is there, and let's just assume it's Obama, we expect him to do the work of the people. And the people are not going to go away. So he can either go down as a historic president who becomes the FDR of this century, or he can be remembered as the man who is in the pocket of Goldman Sachs, who, as the Washington Post pointed out last week, contrary to what the New York Times had put out a couple weeks ago, when they did the math, the real math, President Obama now receives more Wall Street money than all 9 GOP candidates combined. All right? So let's just call it for what it is. And we, the people, the majority of Americans, I think, are sick and tired of this. And we want him not representing Goldman Sachs, but representing the working people of this country. And I'm going to tell you, you know, people...
What does he need to do?
Well, any of a number of things. It's not just him. It's all the Democrats. If every Democrat right now who's running for Congress should just stand up and say, I will not accept a dime of money from Wall Street or from the banks, right away. Just first of all, I think if you say that, that will almost virtually guarantee your election, because the mood of the people right now, the people have really had it, and it's just the tone deafness of the politicians, that they don't understand what's going on. There's going to be a wave against this. So yeah, President Obama needs to not only support legislation in terms of taxing the wealthy, bringing back Glass-Steagall, getting money out of politics, et cetera, et cetera. He actually has to do these things. And when the Republicans say they're going to filibuster, he has to say, well, then go ahead. Stand up there for 48 hours and read from a cookbook. I dare you. You know, have some guts. You know, I was thinking when you ran the piece, I was down there in Times Square last week, when you ran the piece of the Marine who just went ballistic, but in such a sincere and emotional way in front of the New York police, who were getting ready to beat people's heads in with those nightsticks. And I just watched the power of that man, and I just thought, that's what we need. That's what Obama needs to do. That's what these Democrats need to do. What is their problem that they're afraid to do that? Where's the courage? Where's the courage of the man who said, yes, put my middle name on the ballot, Hussein? You know, I mean, that just took an act of almost sheer lunacy, but definite courage in post 9/11 America to put Hussein on the ballot, and yet he still won by 10 million votes. That's how much Americans wanted change. That's how much they wanted him to go in there and do the job that he didn't do.
And he won by many, many people, giving very little money each. Now going for $1 billion. He is going to massive fundraisers throughout this country, what, $38,000 a plate, et cetera, fundraisers, continuing through all of this period.
That's correct. Listen, it has been...
Of course, Republicans are doing the same.
Yes, but we expect that of them. We don't expect that of him. And you know, I don't, I just think that this movement, instead of being penned in by electoral politics or issues or, you know, who's the spokesperson here, everyone's a spokesperson. Everyone's a leader. There's no one person doing this. This is the mass of Americans doing this. And I think people, I was down there the other day and somebody said, who organized this? Who organized this Occupy movement? And I just pointed up to the top floor of Goldman Sachs and I said, actually, they organized it. They and Bank of America and Citibank, they were the organizers of this because they made people's lives so miserable. Well, what would it take for the occupiers to go away? I said, oh, what would it take for them to go away? Give them their homes back. Give them their jobs back. Give them their health care back. Give them health care maybe for the first time ever. Let those students go out and have a life instead of being saddled with $40,000 worth of debt at age 22. How about that? I'll tell you, if they do that, I think some people might pack up and go home. Others, they'll want a fundamental change in this economic system that we have that is not fair. This economic system is immoral because it's set up to allow that the richest 1% get to have most of the pie. And everybody else is supposed to fight for the crumbs that are left on the table. That is an evil system, and that has to change ultimately, because we're just going to be back here at this table again with another problem next year and next year and next year if we don't fundamentally change the fact that we don't have a democratic economic system. In other words, you and I and Cornel have no say in how this economic system is run.
Your latest film, Capitalism: A Love Story, has new meaning today.
Well, it certainly has an ending, because when I left there wrapping the crime scene tape around the stock exchange by myself and saying, that's it, I'm not going to make any more documentaries. And until I'm part of a movement, there's no more of me out here by myself doing this or a few of us doing this. You know, this has to be a mass movement. And I said goodbye at the end of the film. And I said, I don't know if I'll see you later.
What I love about Brother Michael, though, you could just feel the love in his soul for working in poor people. He got Martin Luther King Jr. shot all through him. Because what Martin was talking about was revolution. And that's what I'm talking about. But it's a Kingian revolution. It's a love-based revolution that says we've got war priorities, that says we need a transvaluation of our values and a fundamental transformation of our public life, and a transfer of power from oligarchs and plutocrats. It is not a matter of hating. It's a matter of hating injustice. We don't hate any persons. You hate injustice. And when you have that kind of righteous indignation and holy anger and moral outrage that I have, that Brother Michael has, that the people, part of occupation movements all around the world, that's the makings of the kind of change we want.
Michael, I know you have to leave, and BBC owes me big time, because for me to do their bidding and kick you out so that you can go on their show live around the corner.
Yeah. Well, you know, but see, they've started a whole Occupy movement there. I mean, it really has spread all over. And so I promised I'd give them a few minutes because this is now a global movement.
Absolutely.
And the media part of this?
And
whereas all the network pundits say, what do these people want?
What do they want?
And seriously?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right. Yeah, I mean, you're asking that question, like, why are they even asking the question? Where have they been? You know, if the media...
They are saying, yeah. Seriously? This protest? Seriously?
Yeah, well, you know, good. They have treated, first of all, they've treated Occupy Wall Street, they started out treating it as a joke. First they tried to ignore it. Then they tried to ridicule it. And now they're like, oh, this isn't going away, it's only getting bigger. and it's in Lexington, Kentucky, or it's in Niles, Michigan. Niles, Michigan, a town of 11,000 people. That's all there are in Niles. In a little, it's actually a very conservative part of Michigan. 11,000 people. They had 100 people out there at Occupy Niles. Now, to have 100 people in a town of 11,000, let me just do the math for you, Amy, because I know you didn't do that well in school with math. You know, you're more social studies kind of woman. That's 1% of Niles.
I happen to like math.
You did like math. Oh, well, then I take that back. I hated math. But, so then you knew that that was 1% of Niles. If 1% of the United States of America showed up at a demonstration, that would be over 3 million people in the National Mall. We've never had 3 million people in the National Mall. That's what's going on. And even a Republican town like Niles, Michigan, has 1% of the town show up for Occupy Niles. That is going on. We don't even hear about it. It's going on all over the country where there aren't cameras, where the media is still ignoring it, and yet the people don't care. They've come out of the houses, and they are not going away.
I was in New Bedford, Massachusetts. There was an Occupy New Bedford movement. I took the train to Providence, Rhode Island. As we're driving away from the train station, we see people marching down the street. There was Occupy Providence. Michael, I know you have to go, and we're going to go for a moment to Occupy Louisville. It was in the middle of the night Saturday that I made it over to Occupy Louisville in Kentucky, where that day they celebrated 50-year anniversary of another Dr. King march as people marched down and were arrested in Louisville, Kentucky, the home of Muhammad Ali.
A hug on television.
You can, okay, let's see if we can capture this. So you're going right in front of the TV.
Yes, I did. Love you, brother. I tell you, man. Thank you. Yeah.
Cornel West and Michael Moore. Thank you, Michael.
Brother, I'm sorry to
hold the
interrupt,
mic off before you
yes,
go.
Thank you, Amy. By the way, Amy,
We're going to go to.
What's the square root of pi? Just wondering if you haven't remembered that.
Well, it depends if it's apple, cranberry, if it's pumpkin.
There you go.
Okay.
And she's a comedian.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. We'll go to break, and then we're going to go to Lexington, Kentucky.